Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Making It After 40. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On the show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. Our guest today is Mitch Narito. Right out the gate, I have to tell you that I made an exception with Mitch because Mitch is not yet 40. Mitch is an actor approaching 40 and still building his career. Also, admittedly, I was fangirling a bit because I'm a huge fan of his character, Donkey Doug, in The Good Place. If you've seen The Good Place, then you know what a standout character Donkey Doug is, and why I was so excited to get the chance to chat with Mitch about his experience in this industry. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to rate my show. Now, I would really love it if we could get some reviews. It's the best way to support this show other than buying me a coffee. Okay, enough of that. On to the show. So today on the show, I have Mitch Narito. I don't know if I said your name right.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, Narito, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mitch is an actor, best known for his role as Donkey Doug on The Good Place. I just shared with you, my family, we're huge fans of Donkey Doug. We're good fans of The Good Place, of course, but in particular, I think your character it was a real standout. Just the fact that you and Jason, Manny, are so close in age and they made you his dad was hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
But then you really did some great work with that character in general. So.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. So I got to meet you, or I got in contact with you through Raul. And then we also have some other mutual friends, which is pretty cool. And just thank you so much for coming on the show and taking a chance on me. I know the podcast is still pretty new, but...
Oh, no, thank you. It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing with us a little bit of your journey into acting and then how you got to where you're at now in this stage of your career.
Okay. So I grew up in Los Angeles. Hometown is Eagle Rock.
Nice.
So went to school out there, started doing extra work because I got conned in like grade school. Do you know what like John Robert Powers is?
No, I don't.
So it's this thing. It's like a modeling agency. You'd hear it advertised on the radio.
Oh, nice.
And like pretty much what would happen is like you would go to like a hotel, like like a function room. They'd have like celebrities and whatnot.
Okay.
Like I remember when I went, it was Mario Lopez. So,
oh yeah.
yeah. And then pretty much, it's like they tell you, it's like, oh, you have a good look, like we might be able to use you. But it's kind of iffy because, they take everyone's money.
Yeah.
But I got into that, started doing extra work in like grade school.
Mm-hmm.
Did it all throughout high school. And then decided to go to school for biomed.
Oh,
I went
nice.
I went to UCR. Like I did that for like 2 or 3 years, and then I just realized like I didn't have any passion for it.
Yeah.
Like I had never considered acting as a career.
Yeah.
But after doing the biomed and just like not having any joy in it.
Yeah.
I was searching around. One teacher got me into theater.
Okay.
And like going to theater, like I felt that spark. And I was like, I can do this. I could do this for the long run. This is what I want to do. So switched to theater, finished with that, moved back to LA in 2006.
Okay.
And, was just doing, I learned, like some acting techniques, but no one ever taught me about like the business side of everything.
Oh yeah. I had that experience too.
Yeah, and it was a rough go at first. Like I was just trying to figure out where I fit in and everything, and then like like just grinding away for however long. Like after 10 years, I finally got an audition, and that was for The Good Place.
That's awesome.
I didn't think anything of it at the time because like I had multiple auditions that day, so I was like, okay, I just got to keep going. Got the call back, and then they booked me like a week later.
Yeah.
And that was my first significant TV credit, but from that, it kind of just gave me a voice. It put me on the map in terms of a lot of things. Like, people know I'm around now. They know what I can do.
Yeah.
So just trying to, keep plugging away.
Well, I think what was really fortunate about that being your first legit TV credit is that it's such a standout character. So many people, they have their first co-star or guest star, and maybe it's just like a throwaway character. Like if you do the procedurals, it's the mom who's dying in the hospital, or the guy who knows the guy who's the suspect or something.
Yeah.
But you were given the opportunity to create such an interesting and dynamic character right out the gate. So you really got to show off all that you're capable of.
And that's the thing too. Like, I feel that I did get to have a lot of fun and play. But it being my first TV credit, like I didn't recognize the significance of it at the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was scary. I was very nervous. I was like, like there was something that was very scary about the thought, like, oh, they chose me for a reason, but now I have to deliver.
Yeah.
So it might have been like pressure I put on myself, but it was definitely there.
Yeah.
But it was a good learning experience. Like I feel like like it helped just condition me to understand, like, hey, this is what I should be doing, and this is how it operates. Like,
yeah, and well, all the 10 years of the grind and the not getting anywhere, and I'm sure you were training a lot during that time. It all prepped you for that moment. Yeah,
but definitely. Like I definitely put in the work. Like I was attending classes regularly, just going to workshops, doing whatever I could. But it's different. Like definitely being on set, especially since I was working with veterans of the business.
Yeah.
That was a little intimidating. And like Ted Danson, for example, like he's been doing it for longer than I've been born, maybe. Like and like the guy, like for the table read, like I was expecting proxies, for all the big people, but I got to the table read and it was the entire cast.
That's so cool.
And that was a big surprise. It was like there were so many people in that room for that table read. It was the cast, it was the directors, producers, like they were all there, and it was overwhelming. Like I didn't know what to do. And like Ted was such a kind individual. Like afterwards he came up to me and he's like, hey man, you're effing funny,
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
And I was just like, oh my goodness, like I could die happy,
No, I've heard that he's like super generous and really sweet and kind. So he's such a neat experience, and to have that be your first experience. Mike Shore, I mean, his stuff is so great. So it's like you've got really great material to work with. And then a stellar cast. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better first role.
Yeah. No, it was a privilege. Like I recognize that now. Like it was I was very fortunate. I was very lucky.
So growing up in LA, I know you said that you had that Jason Powers or whatever it was, John Robert Powers experience. I did something similar when I was in high school. I think it was it was like right before I was going to go off to college. I got my mom to bring me up here. It was at a hotel and like one of those like and then they called me like a few weeks later and think, oh, we really think there could be something here for you. And then I think I just like didn't hear back after a while, so I went down that road. I guess there's two questions that I have. Since you were growing up in LA, did the industry seem far away from you? Because my experience is I was a commercial property manager for 15 years, in downtown, managing like the high-rise buildings in downtown. And when I
Okay.
worked there, everybody that I worked with, they were all LA natives. Everybody
Oh.
grew up here or immigrated here when they were, like a teenager or in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get in the acting industry, the line is always like, "Oh, nobody's from LA."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's such crap. There's so many people from LA. They just don't want anything to do with this industry.
True. True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like growing up, I didn't think much of it. Because to me, like, I didn't understand that world
Yeah.
yet. Like, I grew up pretty normal. My parents are both in the medical field. So I grew up around that.
Yeah.
I was in hospitals a lot,
Yeah.
like I was always, not as a patient, but that's what, that's where my parents would work.
Yeah.
And, like that's the entire life I knew. So when I watched TV or whatnot, like I didn't put two and two together. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then, once I started doing extra work and I started to see how like the sausage was made,
Yeah.
Like there was a lot. I was like, wow, they really sell like there is an idea or like an image of Hollywood, like
Yeah.
that's it's sold out. Like like when people come to California and they want to go to like the Hollywood Walk of Fame and they want to do all that, like that's all been cultivated to like draw people in,
Yeah.
like and I saw like there are elements of that, but that's not that's not how it works.
It's not the glamour
Like,
that they try to sell.
yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, they don't show, like, the below-the-line people who are working their butts off, they are the ones that really make this happen. My uncle actually just recently gave me an analogy. My Uncle Doug, he'll probably listen to this. He was excited for this podcast. He was a theater teacher. And I guess whenever he would start a production, he would tell the students, he would do a demonstration and he'd put a glove on his hand. And then he would take the glove off and he'd say the hand is the actors. And the glove, and without the glove, it's unprotected. It's just out there to the left to the elements, and it doesn't have it's not as useful. And the glove are the writers, the director, the grips, the crew, in the theater sense, like the stagehands, all of that. And without the hand, it's just a glove. It's useless. It's just a piece of cloth. But when you put the two together, then you can have the magic. And so we all depend on each other. And I think so much of the public perception is just the actors on screen, but there's like, we're just such a small piece of it.
Yeah.
And we really
like,
need each other.
Yeah, definitely. Like, all my years doing this, like it makes you realize how like very small you are in this industry.
Oh yeah.
Like it is very, it's a thing. Like you do feel very small at times.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went into biomed then out of high school. I assume that was a lot of your parents' influence?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Did you guys have the, when I was in high school, we had this program called AVID, and they would really kind of push you to, like, teach you how to study right. And it was for, like, minority kids. Like, in my school was mostly, like, Mexican. But, like, if you're...
Oh, where'd you go?
I grew up in San Diego. So, North County, San Diego. So it was like, it was mostly Mexican and white, and then a few other minorities, but it was basically like nearly half white and half Mexican. So, so they like helped you get into school, and like I was really pushed to go to like a proper 4-year college and study academics, but I was like, no, I'm going to study theater. So I was just wondering, did you have a similar kind of experience?
I actually went to a college prep school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Raul, who was on your show previously, his wife actually teaches there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's a fancy school, isn't it?
It is. It is a very fancy school.
Dang, dude.
I went there because I was a legacy. My brother had gone there, and usually, like that school tries to uphold, like if you had family in it, let's try to keep the entire family. Like keep everyone.
Yeah.
So I got to go to that school, and it was very private, very upper middle class white was the majority.
Yeah.
And honestly, that it made college very easy because like my high school was so tough that when I got to college, it was a breeze.
It's a piece of cake.
Like, yeah, like my high school knew that I was gonna go to a college,
Yeah.
so they're like, okay, this is the best we could do.
Yeah.
You know, like let's do that. But yeah, like when I got to college, like that, you know, like the thing that a lot of people tend to forget, you know, college is a time of self-discovery.
Yeah.
You're on your own. You get to figure out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I found myself questioning a lot of what I saw for myself in the future.
Yeah.
If I had stayed, you know, like let's say I went the medical route.
Yeah.
I would have had to gone to graduate school and then, you know, more school after that. I probably wouldn't finish anything until my mid-30s,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd be loaded up with debt, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah, like, and for me, like, theater was like, well, I've always been told, like, if you are passionate about something, if you like something, it doesn't matter whether or not you're making a ton of money, like,
Mm-hmm.
you'll feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So I switched majors, and I never looked back.
And how did your family take that? Were they okay with it, or?
At first, they were not.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I can
hard.
tell you. I can tell you exactly. Like I was in the car. I was with both my parents. We were going out to get some dinner.
Uh-huh.
And I was in the back seat. And on the car ride, I was like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm not gonna finish with biomed." And they're like, "Okay," you know.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Okay, so what are you gonna do?" And I told them, "I want to be an actor." And these are my mom's exact words. She said, "Oh, you better not." You know? So yeah, like it took them a long time to accept it. One of the things that did ease their mind was I got a job after college. Like my day job is teaching. I'm a teacher.
Oh,
I teach,
that's awesome.
I teach English as a second language to adults.
Okay.
And once my parents realized, it's like, okay, at least he has that, you know, like if anything, he can always do that. That kind of set their mind at ease. And they just accepted it. And even now, like I'll tell my mom, like, hey, you know, like I booked something, and she'll be like, are you getting paid for it? You know, like, because she understands, like, you know, like she knows that like for such a long time I was doing a lot of projects for free. For just, you know, copy, credit, exposure, whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, like now she's like, they've accepted. It's like, oh, okay, he's reached some point of where he wants to be. He knows what he's doing. So
Yeah.
he's okay.
Yeah, you're on the right trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the hardest reality to bite. I'm not saying that right, but the hardest part of the reality to accept, maybe that's better, is that it really does take you so long to get to where you want to go.
And I feel like when you're starting, like you always have that like, oh, I'm gonna accomplish this in X amount of years.
Oh yeah.
You know? And then like you hit that milestone and you're like, oh man, I'm not even close.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah. There's so much of you don't know what you don't know. And I feel like each year I learn a little bit more, and, you know, like you make a little bit of progress, you take a step back, you make a little bit of progress. Like last year I got my first theatrical audition, or my first theatrical agent. And I had I was getting theatrical auditions like once a week or every couple of weeks. And that was so great. And like this year, it's just so slow. You just don't know what it's going to, I've talked to a lot of other people who have said that it's been a little quiet, and you just don't know what it's going to bring. Oh, that's okay. Hi, kitty.
It's Dexter.
Oh, cute.
But yeah, no, like definitely. It's also tough too, because like I said, like when I first started, no one, like I didn't have a mentor or anything. So it was kind of like the blind leading the blind. I was like, I would ask people, it's like, hey, what am I supposed to be doing? And they'd be like, maybe this.
Yeah.
So I'd try it out. And, you know, like that included agents and managers.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't had like when I first started out, like none of my representation was good.
Yeah.
Like, it took a long time for me to figure out like, okay, this is what I need from a rep. This is what this rep can deliver. Like, and I have to be honest with it. It's business. Like, you definitely have to take into consideration, like,
Yeah.
if you're going out for the correct things, like how often.
Yeah.
And like, I struggled with that, like, for a very long time. And then luckily, I started just finding people who understood, like, what I brought to the table.
Yeah, that's so important.
And,
That's such a
yeah.
big piece of the puzzle, because if they're not sending you out for the right stuff, you're never going to book the role, because it's not meant for you. It's not, you're not even,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because, like, so Narito's, it's a family name,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't start out with that. Like,
Okay.
my real last name is Hernandez.
Oh, yeah.
I would get sent out for a lot of, like, Spanish speaking roles.
Yeah.
And I would show up to the audition and I'd be the only Asian guy.
Yeah.
And then people would be like, "Are you lost? Are you in the right place?" Like, I'm like, this is where they sent me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going where they sent me.
Yeah.
And like, you really have to be very vocal and have those lines of discussion open with a rep.
Yeah.
Like, just be like, "Hey, I can't do this. Like, this is how you should market me. Like, this would probably be better for you."
Yeah.
Like,
that is a big lesson that I've been learning. I go by my last name, my born name, Rodriguez, but so I'm half white and half Mexican. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish, and it's been a challenge for reps to understand that I'm not fluent in Spanish, and sending me out for roles where I'm expected to just speak Spanish doesn't really work.
oh yeah, I get that with Filipino.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, "Hey, do you speak Tagalog?" Like, the way that I grew up with it, like, my parents spoke to me in Tagalog, I would respond in English, and that's how we communicated.
Yeah.
So I can understand everything,
Yeah.
but I can't speak it. Like, I need time to prepare or translate.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's something
Yeah.
that Raul and I discussed, and Ron Song, who you were on his web series.
Oh, yeah.
Ron and I are like, we're good buddies too. He was episode number 3. Yeah, episode number 3. We talked about that, how, like, well, he speaks Korean, but his first role was being a Korean taxi driver on Dave, and it's funny how, like, that's kind of, because if you have any ethnicity other than white, they really expect you to speak Spanish. And Raul and I were saying, like, we really want the industry to get to the point where you can just be Filipino, Mexican, Salvadorian, whatever it is, and also be American, and what language you speak isn't a factor in it. I mean, you can, you're like, your culture is
after the fact.
Yeah, like, just be the person, because I get a lot of the auditions that I get are, like, definitely geared, like, Hispanic, or it's usually, every once in a while I get a white lady, but mostly it's Hispanic. But I think people aren't always sure what to do with me, because I have dark hair, but I also look kind of white, and in this industry, they really want to be able to put you in a box. It makes it easier for
Yeah,
it easy
do.
for them.
They very much do.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was a challenge for you when you first started coming out here, trying to figure out, like, so much has changed now, but back in 2006, I'm sure it was really hard for you to find your footing being a Filipino person.
Oh yeah, like, cause like, it's subjective. Cause, like, before, when I was first starting out, like, if you weren't part of the big or the top 3 Asians, it's like Japanese, Korean, Chinese. If you weren't one of those,
the top 3 Asians.
No, that's what it was. That's honestly what it was.
Yeah.
Like there is still a little bit of that now, but, like, now we have more representation in terms of, like, like, non like East Asian.
Yeah.
Like like, there's a lot of Southeast Asian representation nowadays. Indians, Pakistanis too. Like, all those Minas. Like, they're starting to find their groove.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, starting out, I would go out for everything. It didn't matter if I was that ethnicity or not. They're like, if he looks like he can pass, that's fine. Like, there wasn't that specificity that we have nowadays.
Yeah. That's hard. Well, and I've thought about changing my last name. I did for a while work with my married name from my first marriage, and I decided when I went back, because I kind of took a break from pursuing acting, and when I came back into it, I decided I'm just going to embrace Rodriguez, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with me, and hopefully I can show them.
Yeah.
By making content and just being who I am, and they'll just see that like Rodriguez doesn't mean that I'm, a stereotype. I'm just a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely like it's a lot of trying to just be honest with yourself. Like, what are you able to put out there? Like, that's what I started to accept. Like, the longer I was in this business,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, like, because I would put stuff on my resume. I get called in for that stuff, and I like
Like
it was
special
like, oh,
skills.
wow. Yeah. Like, I'd get called in for stuff, and then like I like I know how to do things, but I realize like when people put stuff on the resume, they're expecting like master proficiency already.
Yeah.
Like when they come and see it.
Yeah.
So like there was a lot of like I feel like there was a lot of like casting offices I burned.
Yeah.
Because they were just like, what is this guy doing? Like, this guy just straight up lied on his resume.
Yeah.
Like, because people will find out. So you might as well just be upfront. Like, if you can do something, that's awesome. If not, like just be upfront with it.
Yeah.
Like, casting will respect you more that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So what keeps you motivated to keep going in the industry? Because I know when we've been going at it for this long, it's hard to not let yourself get burnt out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest reasons I'm still continuing is just like I'm just stubborn.
Yeah.
Like I'm very hard headed. Every year I take inventory of like how things are going.
Yeah.
Like in all facets of my life, and I realized, do I want to keep doing this? Like I ask myself every year,
Yeah.
like, is this worth it still? Because like I've seen so many people come and go. Like a lot of the people that I started out with, like a lot of them transitioned to different occupations. Like they realize, acting is very difficult. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's not like financially, it's not stable.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. And so like you just have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And like for me, like I'm starting to find my stride, and that's because I've stuck with it for so long.
Yeah.
And it's a race of attrition. Like the longer you're in it, your pool of talent, the people that you go in for your same things, that diminishes. So
Yeah.
like the older you get, the better your chances are of like actually landing something like significant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think just from the male perspective, I think it's a real challenge for you guys to keep going in the industry as you age. Like the females have the issue of ageism and like no longer being like just a sexual object anymore. Like, oh, what do we do with her now? But I think for the men, if they want to have a family, they want to get married, they want to have kids, there's a societal expectation that the men are going to provide. And when you're an actor who's only booking every once in a while and you have to have your side jobs, not everyone gets it or appreciates the work that you're putting into it. I'm sure that's a challenge that guys have.
And I think that you touched upon it with Raul again in your last podcast.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it, like I'm not able to do what I do without my wife.
Yeah.
Like my spouse, like she's my partner in all this. You know,
that's
like
so cool.
She's the one, like Raul was talking about how he has help with self tapes. She is my self tape machine. Like, but yeah, like having someone that understands what you're going through without necessarily, because she's not in the industry.
Yeah.
But she understands. She sees what I go through.
Yeah.
And she can kind of pull me out of things when it's getting a little too, like overwhelming.
Yeah.
She'll be like, hey, like let's do something else.
Yeah.
She celebrates my successes with me, but she's also there, like when stuff is not going my way, and like having that groundedness, having something that has value outside of the industry that's not connected. I feel that's very important for any creative.
No, I think that's super important because it's super grounding. My husband isn't in the industry either. And there are times when I've just been spiraling and feeling like, I can't believe I'm not further along. I don't know how to get more auditions. And he'll actually remind me like, hey, a year ago you didn't have this rep. 2 years ago you didn't have that rep. Just look at, you are making progress. It might not be in bookings, but you're making progress in other ways. And like now you have relationships with casting directors that you didn't have before. Like I remember the first time I got called in off of a workshop, like I didn't book the part, but I got called in off of a workshop and I was so excited because that was like, wow, it actually worked.
And that's a win too.
Yeah.
Like like a lot of people take that stuff for granted, If you get called into an audition, there may be like 40, 50, like depending on the role, you know, like let's say like 40, 50 people that they look at or whatnot. But that's 40 to 50 people out of like thousands of submissions, right? If you get called into a casting office, that's a really good sign because that means you're on that radar. Yeah. And like I've always heard, you don't, if you don't book the job, that's fine because there's a lot of things that go into that are way beyond your control. Yeah. But if you can book the casting office, if you can book the casting directors and just like show them like, oh, there's a little glimmer of something there, if you could show that to them and they call you back again, that's the win. Like you may not be working right away, but like I said, it's a marathon. Yeah. You gotta you plant these little seeds here and there, and then they'll come to fruition in time. Yeah, it really is. So, in our text message, we talked about that you're approaching 40. You have not hit that milestone yet. Yeah. And so I made an exception. I think it's okay to have these approaching 40 people because you guys have like another perspective on the other side of the hill. What are you looking forward to as you age into this career and as you continue to age into your craft? And then I guess my question would be like, what kind of changes are you looking forward to seeing in this industry? So I think, as I'm approaching 40, like the thing that I'm most excited about is that my demographic is changing. Yeah. And because my demographic is changing, it opens up a lot more possibilities for things. Yeah. Because when I was doing this straight out of college in my early 20s, there was so many people doing what I was doing. Like it was hard to stand out and like just show people like, hey, this is what I can do. This is who I am. But like I said, the older I get, there's less people that are in my category. There's less people that look like me, can do what I can do. So it's more niche, it's like it's more specific. And that's the one thing that casting directors, like you said, like they will always try to put you in a box. Yeah. And that's not, that's their job. That's what they not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. But yeah, the older you get, the more specific you are, the casting understands like, oh, I have this. Yeah. Like you want this, I have that. Like as opposed to like when you're young, it's like, oh man, I got like dozens of people that can maybe do this, but I don't know which one can actually act or whatnot. You know, so just aging up, it's exciting for me because like I'm starting to get access to roles that I could never play before. Yeah. Like, dads mostly. Like in The Good Place, I was a dad. Yeah. But which tripped me out. It still trips me out. I don't know if I should feel offended. No, it's hilarious that they cast you with someone who's 3 years younger than you. Yeah. I mean, that was like brilliant casting. It's hard not to get offended with the age stuff. Even like with this podcast, I'm trying to like ask friends and other actors that maybe I follow on Instagram and like admire their careers, and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you've hit 40 yet, because I don't want people to be offended by it. And I think once you get to a certain age, you're just kind of like, who cares, But when I know when I was like 38 and I would get an audition for something that's like early 40s, I was like, how dare you? Yeah.
But I think there is, as you kind of like get over that hump, you start to realize like the number doesn't so much matter, because it's a general grouping. Like we kind of like look, you could be late 30s, you could be early 40s. It's hard to tell. There's no line that's gonna, like, your face doesn't automatically change when you hit 40. So take what works for you, I guess. Yeah.
No, but yeah, like it's so crazy, because I feel that now that I am starting, because like I'm starting to look older, like it's
right.
Like that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like you got to remember, like Hollywood, like in terms of age, like if they say like 60s,
right.
Hollywood 60s is like actual like 40s for most people, like it always has to look a little better because. Especially when it comes to older folks, because I know, like, sometimes, like, I'll see casting for things, it'll be, like 70 to 80-year-olds, and they're getting people that are in, like, their 50s.
Yeah.
Because, if they actually had, like, 70 or 80-year-olds, it'd be like, wow, that person is ancient on camera, like, so.
I know, I've started to go gray, and I've thought, well, maybe I should just, like, embrace the gray and start going out for, like, 60-year-old roles. I'll be, like, the young, hot 60-year-old.
Yeah. Still like to have fun.
Yeah. She's really nimble for being 60. Wow.
Right? See, and that's like, and like I still go out for stuff that's a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
And
well,
when I
you
do
look
get,
super young, so.
Oh, thank you. But still, like, sometimes I'm just like, ooh, I don't know if this is a fit, but let's see what happens, because it also depends on, like, you as an actor. Like, if whoever's in charge of making decisions, if they see something that could work for them, like if they see something that's possible, they'll push that. Like, they'll be like, hey, this is the best option we have, like if they feel that.
Yeah.
So you just, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes it can just be your essence. I think I look young enough that I can still play late 30s, but I think my essence reads a little bit older. So I think
like an older soul.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. So I think sometimes when I go in, I don't know, maybe I'm curmudgeonly sometimes or something, but I think maybe I do kind of read like, okay, yeah, that lady's in her 40s. So I also wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for people coming into this industry, either as a young person or maybe like Ron, starting a second act career and just freaking taking off?
Yeah, he is taking off.
I know, right? Isn't that so cool?
It's so crazy, because I talked to him recently, and I was like, what is going on? And he broke it down, and I was like, oh man, that's nuts. It's like,
so
congrats.
nuts. Yeah, I told him, I was like, I can't think of anybody more deserving. You are so talented and so nice and so generous with your soul and spirit, but I guess that's the Ron podcast. Like,
yeah, like in terms of advice, like I would say, like I might have like a few pieces if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I bring it on. I think what I've found to be really cool is that people even outside of this industry have been enjoying the insights about career and life changes and life building. So lay it all out. I think it'll be well received.
So I think like the first thing, like first and foremost, for acting or anything creative, find something that has value outside of that industry or that field.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of actors, they can't separate themselves, and like acting it's a bunch of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. Like most of the time, it's a lot more downs than ups. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So if you have something outside of acting that fulfills you, that makes you happy, nurture that, like encourage that, because acting may not work for everyone. Like it's a tough industry. Like I still think about that too. Like it could very well be like the good place is the highlight of my career. Like I might not book another thing. Hopefully that's not the case. But like, like I might not book anything for a long time, like right. It it was 10 years before I booked Donkey Doug, and it could be another 10 years before I get something of that caliber again.
Yeah.
Find value outside of that. Like, that way you can keep going, and you're not too critical of yourself.
Yeah.
And then another piece of advice is find your community. Find people that support you, and understand what you're doing. Like, I think one of the biggest things for me was I joined an ongoing acting class for scene study. It's the same one I'm in with Raul. I've been in that class for maybe 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been in there for a while. And one of the things is, like, just being around people that are doing the same things as you, that have the same shared experiences, that helps. You know, like, that helps a lot, because, like, you'll see it's like, oh, you know, like, oh man, I haven't worked in a while. And then there are other people that are like, oh, I haven't auditioned in a while. And, like, at least you get that feedback too. It's like, hey, what's going on out, you know, like, because you can only do so much by yourself. So, like, it just makes sense to, like, connect with others and see, you know, like, what's going on. Because, like, you may find the key to your success, like, by observing someone else. Like, hey, that person did this, and then I can do this. You know, like, it's like one of those things.
It makes you feel less alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it can get really lonely in this industry, especially when you're in the hard times and the emails, the text messages are silent from your reps, and it doesn't mean they're not working for you, but you feel like you're in this vacuum, and you just have to trust that everybody is doing work behind the scenes that you can't see. But I think if you have a community, and if you're doing your own share, you have to do your own share of the work in order to make those opportunities come through.
It'll get you out of your head for, like you said, like, when you start thinking, like, you could kill yourself when you're thinking, you know, it's like, oh, what did I do wrong in this audition? You know, like, what am I not doing? Do I not look right? Or blah, blah. So, like, just having, you know, that community that can just tell you, it's like, hey man, you're doing fine. It's just, it's the industry. That's what it is, you know, like, just the people that remind you that.
That you're going to have the down times and you'll have the busy times, and it's just wading through those ups and downs.
And just remember, like, the lowest that you can feel, like, anytime, like, you're doing anything, you got to remember, however crappy you feel at that moment, like, at some point it's going to flip to the opposite of that. So the more, you know, I guess, sorrow or heartbreak you can bear, like, when you hit the high, it's relative, you know, like,
Well, what keeps you going then when you hit those? Is it the community?
It is, because I don't like to compare myself to others, because everyone's at different points in their careers. I try to take it as that if I compare myself to people that are my age, that are doing my thing, like, it'll get depressing, because then, like, it'll be like, oh, this person is working on that, and this person's working on that. And that's not, you know, like, I don't feel like that's a good space to operate from. A lot of people feel like, you know, this industry is one of scarcity. Like, there's only so much you can do. There's only so many jobs around. I like to operate from the opposite. I think that there are so many opportunities. We're in the right place to be doing this. If one of my friends or if someone I know gets some work, I'm happy for them. You know, like, I am genuinely happy for them, because I know what that struggle is like, and who am I to like, take away from their hard work? So
I think that's a really generous perspective to have. I have the same perspective that whatever is yours, you can't miss it. It'll come to you in one way or the other. So if you don't book it, it just wasn't meant for you. It just wasn't the right role for you.
Yeah.
But I think you touched on that earlier too. Is just because you didn't book the role doesn't mean that it's not going to be another opportunity a year from now, 5 years from now. A lot of casting directors will say that they have actors that they bring in, like, they'll bring them in for 10 years trying to find that right role for them, and then one day they get it. So my last question for you is, what does success look like to you as you age, or what does making it mean to you now versus maybe when you first got started?
I think success for me has always been, like, I'll know I'll have made it when, for one, I can do acting full time. Yeah. Because I'm still teaching. Yeah. I love teaching. Like, I'm good at it, but Like if I had the choice,
Right.
like if I had the financial, you know, like if I had the choice, I'd focus solely on acting. Like that, that would be where 100% of my energy went.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just being able to do that and just being financially stable enough to like take care of myself and people in my life.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd love to make enough to like, because my mom is getting up there in age.
Retire your mom kind of thing.
Yeah. So like, you know, because like, you know, she's worked long enough.
Yeah.
She supported me for long enough. I just want to repay that favor.
Yeah.
And
I understand that.
and then, you know, encourage, you know, like for my wife and like, you know, like I have close like nieces and nephews and stuff. Just like if they have any problems, they can come to me and I'll be like, hey, you know, like I can help.
Yeah.
You. Like I just want to be able to help people.
Yeah. Did people think that was going to happen when you got Donkey Doug? Were they like, oh yeah, you're rich now, right?
No, there is a lot of that. Like a lot of people think like, oh, just because I was on that TV show, like, oh, I have it made now. Like you're set. And I'm just like, no, not quite.
No.
Like,
I mean, it was nice, but it's not retire mom money.
Yeah, it's like because I was telling some other friends like I started booking commercials like just last year. Last year was the first time I ever like shot a commercial for anything, and that one commercial paid me more than The Good Place. Yeah. Like doing 3 episodes of The Good Place, like it just paid more, and I was like, this is weird, you know, like it doesn't make sense to me, like. So like, you know, people will stop me on the street if they recognize me, and they'll be like, oh hey, you're on The Good Place, you're Donkey Doug. I'm like, yeah, and they're like, then they'll see the car I was driving, you know, and they'll be like, oh, you know, like, what is this? What's going on here? Something's not adding up.
Yeah, they don't. A lot of people don't get that, but I mean, it makes sense to make more money from the commercials because you're helping sell a product, so you're making them money. Yeah. So you need your cut. You get a cut of that. Oh, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
I
so
hope
much.
that this is the first of many conversations. I'd like to keep in touch and keep following your work. You do stand up as well, yeah?
I do.
Yeah.
Horribly.
Has that always been part of your career path, or did you incorporate it later?
I was at the beginning of my career. I did stand up just to get exposed to certain things, and I kind of shied away from it. I still don't do it as much as I should, just because it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is. It is a lot of work, and it's not where I feel like all my creative energies lie. Like I do it, because it's fun. Yeah. Like I do it to socialize. Yeah. Much. But yeah, I do stand up. We have shows every month. It's a karaoke and comedy show. Okay. So comics will do a set of comedy and then they sing a karaoke song. So do you have people? Do they ever do a comedy set and then do a really serious, sincere karaoke? Like they blow everybody away with their voice. No, yeah, they're it's amazing because you'll get the different ranges. Like sometimes the people are like, oh, that guy sucks. Yeah. But then it's he starts singing karaoke and it's like, whoa, what was that? And then you have people that you have the opposite. You have people that are really good at comedy, but then when they sing karaoke, it's like, whoa, what happened there? That's weird. And then I'm really jealous of the people that can do both. So I'm just like, oh, you bastard. Yeah. That's really cool. Where can people go and check out that show? So we have one show every last Sunday of the month at Brewyard in Glendale. Oh. And then I like Brewyard. We have another I haven't been in a couple years, but when they first opened up, my husband and I used to go down there a lot. Yeah, definitely. You should come down. We also have another one. It's at the Good Night in North Hollywood. That's every second Friday of the month. Okay. So we have that. But if anyone wants to keep up with it, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Yes. At Mitch Narito. Okay. Just one word. So on both. I usually post on both. Yeah. Mitch Narito. Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you again. This has been so much fun. I appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode, and a special thank you to Raul de Anda for introducing me to Mitch and making this episode possible. You can follow Mitch on Instagram or Twitter at Mitch Narito. And remember, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you listen. It's the best way to support the show and helps us grow our audience. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at makingitafter40, the number 40. Finally, if you want to see what I'm up to besides podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.